It's a terrifying realization, waking up to find that the life you are living bears no resemblance to the one you actually wanted. If that is you, then you also know how difficult that feeling is to explain. In a world that has become more and more logical, feelings have naturally become harder to communicate. So it is not a surprise to me that most of TVF shows have been successful. They have given what the audience craves, a place to let go of their suppressed feelings of struggle and their quiet desperation of wanting to change. But Sapne vs. Everyone felt different. Even though it tries to reach a similar audience, it ended up resonating a lot more with them. And after having sat with this thought for a month, I think it succeeded more than other TVF shows because it goes beyond momentary motivation and actually tries to offer lessons. But its most important lesson, it never speaks out loud. In an interview on Miss Malini's channel, Ambrish Verma, the brain behind the show, is asked a question about how he has such conviction on his vision. And his reply caught my attention.
जब आप as a writer, as a director, as an actor, the most important thing is to develop a gut/instinct, which can only develop by taking your own decisions and then either falling or succeeding.
He says that for a writer, director, or actor, it is very important to develop a gut/instinct because regardless of whether you fail or succeed, it acts as the source of your decision making. But I don't think Ambrish is just talking about writers or actors. I think he's giving away the show's entire philosophy. But there's a trap in the word instinct. We talk about instinct like it's IQ, a genetic lottery prize that some have but others don't. And we know that is not what Ambrish is describing. He is talking about something you have to build from scratch, which is why I have always called it an internal compass. For a compass isn't innate. It is an instrument. Every decision you own recalibrates it. Every mistake you make sharpens its reasoning. But the lesson only lands if the mistake was actually yours. The first character through whom the show explores this idea is Prashant, and he starts the show with a deceptively simple question. Where do dreams come from? But before he can even answer it, he's already shown sprinting towards his car. A theater rehearsal is taking place, one that he's already late for. Before we even get to know our hero's name or anything about him, the show has already told us something important. Dreams in this world will not be easy to achieve. They are elusive, they are always within your grasp and yet always out of reach. Prashant is a man driven by raw passion, but passion alone is not enough. His dream is to be the greatest actor, but life has different plans for him, constantly pulling him in directions that don't serve that dream. He is the character many of us turn into when responsibilities take over, when we stop prioritizing ourselves. And the price of this surrender is stagnation. Every time Prashant abandons what he truly wants, his internal compass grows quieter. Then comes Jimmy, our second protagonist. His introduction couldn't be more polarizing, both in premise and its message. Jimmy is what we call street smart, a ruffian of sorts, and his actions are similar in nature. And before we even know it, he's already in a tussle with some young, rich, entitled kids. His introduction, though highly entertaining, was a bit confusing to me. He wasn't portrayed as a dreamer, but looking back, his introduction serves another thematic purpose. Dreaming alone is useless. You will also need raw grit in order to achieve it. But later on, we get to see the show is not kind to Jimmy either. Jimmy has his flaws too. His confidence repeatedly crosses into arrogance, which severely comes to bite him. The moment he celebrates overselling a property, a clash with his uncle forces him to surrender his profit, reinforcing the idea that neither protagonist will be granted an easy win. Each mistake will come with a hefty lesson. If Prashant always hesitates in making decisions, Jimmy is the one that doesn't hesitate enough. The former lacks courage, the latter lacks restraint. Together, they become two halves of the same lesson, neither possessing a fully developed internal compass. If Prashant's inner voice is clouded due to responsibilities, Jimmy's inner voice is clouded due to vengeance. To bridge these two worlds, the show introduces a pivotal figure from Prashant's past, his childhood teacher Sumit. At first glance, these flashbacks seem like your typical origin stories explaining why Prashant became a dreamer. But its purpose here is much more important. The show uses these flashbacks to directly talk to us, the audience. If the story is ultimately about pursuing dreams, Sumit is the one providing the fundamental tools needed to pursue said dreams. His first lesson isn't simply to dream. Instead, it is to commit to that dream publicly and more importantly, privately.
बट आप सब हर दिन किसी ना किसी को ये रोज बताएंगे कि आप बड़े होकर क्या बनना चाहते हैं, या बेस्ट ऑफ ऑल खुद को.
Firstly, he tells us to speak out loud whatever our dream is. Not because speaking words will magically bend reality to our will, but because it changes your relationship with your own decisions. Every affirmation is a binding vow. Every time you repeat what you want, you make it a little harder to betray yourself. Because instinct is built one decision at a time, and every decision begins by choosing not to abandon yourself. A process that is time and time again hindered by these everyone. And that is exactly how the show tries to warn us about the second half of its title.
इन्हें कहते हैं ड्रीम पिशाच. ये ड्रीम पिशाच आपको ड्रीमलेस बना देते हैं.
Everyone is a word that the show uses for its main villain: life, luck, and society. It could be your parents, neighbors, friends, lovers, teachers, your bad luck, or your misfortunes. All of them come under this umbrella. This everyone exists to instill in us one primary emotion: the fear of making mistakes. To them, a mistake is not a lesson. For them, mistakes are definite proof of a man's incapability to overcome their circumstances. People who dream and fail is another proof in their eyes why it is not worth taking risks, thinking big, following a path full of hurdles. And that is exactly how our internal compass dies. It doesn't disappear overnight. It is slowly outsourced. First to your parents, then to your teachers, and then to society. To a point where you eventually stop asking, what do I want? And begin asking if my wants match their expectations. And their greatest lie starts by getting us into a program of perpetual preparation, a system that puts more emphasis on preparation itself instead of making us question what we want to prepare for. We are told, study so you can enter a good college, enter a good college so you can get a good job, get a good job so you can retire comfortably. Every stage is a preparation for your entry into the so-called real world. But the moment you enter, you slowly realize life still feels the same. And this is how some brilliant minds quietly succumb to the corporate assembly line, doing jobs they have no interest in. And they stick to these jobs not because they're incapable of leaving, but because every year spent on that path has made turning back feel much more expensive. And this is how people slowly stop choosing. One compromise becomes another, and before you realize, you've spent decades preparing for a life you never consciously chose. And that is the real threat of everyone. They don't just drown out your voice. They actively try to kill it. There is an old saying, the nail that sticks out gets hammered first. And our heroes stick out like nails because they are actively trying to fight against everyone and everything. They aren't simply chasing dreams. They are choosing ownership. And so the show understands something that many motivational stories don't. Hardship by itself teaches nothing. The lesson only becomes yours when the choice was yours. That is, if you never fight to move forward on your own terms, not only the mistakes are not yours, the lessons you learn don't belong to you either. Which is why the show is absolutely relentless in making sure our heroes commit to their own worldview. Good or bad, the show understands that your own mistakes are worth more than success built on someone else's path. So much so that if you summarize the whole monologue about Hero Cairn, in one line it would be, one who is true to himself. And I don't believe this simply because the show suggested it. My whole life has been its proof. I can't tell you how to become successful, because by most people's standard, I haven't been. I can't even tell you what it is like to struggle in a mindless job, a job you don't like, for I have never had a job. By the way, I turned 27 this year. My class 12th report card still shows I failed in maths. On paper, I am exactly the kind of person society would use as a proof that you should choose the safer path. Because the life I'm living is definitely not easy. But I'm more at peace with myself than many people who are doing far better than I am. I don't regret the paths I didn't take, because I took the ones I wanted to and could. Many ended in failure, some ended in disappointment, but every single one of them was mine. When Prashant delivers the line in his play, Umar Bhar Khayali, Bhooton se agar main na darta, Khuda main kya zor se jeeta, khuda main kya chan se marta. To me, these words are not something I get motivated by. They describe the life I've already chosen to live, and I wouldn't change a single thing about it, good or bad. In contrast, being a psychology graduate, people naturally in my circle end up talking to me about their existential crisis. Most of them are in a much better position than I am, and yet they are unsatisfied. A strange void consumes them. They feel as if there is something missing in life. And the ones I truly pity are those young bright minds full of intelligence but lacking an internal compass, because for them, too many of life's biggest decisions were made before they even had the chance to make them themselves. The stream they pick in school, the college they would join, the career they would follow, even the definition of success, piece by piece everyone molded these choices for them. By the time they realize this, they feel as if it's already too late. Convenience was the path they were told to follow. But the very society that sold them these lies forgets that the stories that have evolved humanity throughout its existence are about resilience, overcoming challenges, and trying to live as true to one's core as possible. But I can't blame these individuals. For some, life truly has dealt a bad hand. For some, life truly is a serious game. But the ones who are privileged and want to change, to them I say, there is a certain attitude required to survive this struggle, and it comes from a shift in attitude about life itself. In episode 2, while Sumit is delivering his message to the new dreamers, the real message to us adults is ultimately behind him. Words that are never spoken but are the real core lesson one should apply in life. Be sincere, not serious. I first heard these words 6 years ago from Alan Watts, and he said, "There is a difference between being serious and being sincere. In frivolity, there is a lightness which can rise, but in seriousness is a gravity that falls like a stone. And thus the angels fly because they take themselves lightly." These so-called everyone shift the attitude about life into seriousness. Because once again, as Alan Watts said, a man suffers only because he takes seriously what the gods made for fun. And the irony is that the very society that takes life seriously should have also realized, you only have one life. Go live. Your death will come on an ordinary day in the middle of unfinished plans, and the world will continue without you. It is a privilege to even know you have a dream, and it is a boon if you know it when you are young. The tragedy occurs when you know it and still do not chase it. So go find where you are in your life, and if you have lost your voice, see if you can find it again. This is Revoked Jester, and peace out.